The fire was a scream in the night, a beast that devoured everything Elena Harper held dear. At 17 she stood frozen on the lawn, watching flames claw at her childhood home, her twin sister Lila's desperate cries echoing from the second floor. She could still feel the heat on her face, the weight of her own cowardice as she failed to run back inside. 11 years later, Elena stood in a sterile lawyer's office in Portland, Oregon, clutching a letter that unraveled her world again. Lila's will left behind after her death in that fire named a stranger as her sole beneficiary, Clara Monroe, a woman Elena had never heard of. The words burned worse than the flames ever had. Her twin, her mirror, had loved someone else, someone she'd kept secret, and now that secret was tearing Elena apart. Elena's life had been a careful reconstruction since the fire. She'd built walls around her heart, brick by brick, becoming a reserved librarian who found solace in the quiet order of books. At 28, her days were predictable, cataloging novels, sipping coffee at the corner cafe, and avoiding mirrors that reminded her of Lila's face. But the will shattered that fragile peace. Clara Monroe inherited everything. Lila's savings, her journals, even the locket their mother had given them. Why had Lila hidden this woman? And why did it feel like a betrayal? The lawyer, a graying man with kind eyes, slid a photograph across the desk. "This was with the will," he said. It showed Lila laughing, her arm around a woman with short black hair and a radiant smile. Clara. They looked happy, happier than Lila had ever been with Elena after she came out as lesbian at 16. The memory stung. Elena's silence when Lila confessed, her clumsy attempt to say it was fine, while her discomfort screamed louder. They'd fought that night, words sharp as knives, and the next day the fire took Lila forever. Elena drove to the address listed in the will, a small bookstore in Seattle. The city buzzed with life, but she felt like a ghost, haunted by questions. Why Clara? What had Lila seen in her? The bookstore, Pages and Promises, was cozy with warm wooden shelves and the scent of old paper. A woman stood behind the counter, her green eyes catching the light like sea glass. Clara Monroe. "You're Elena," Clara said, not a question. Her voice was soft but steady, like she'd been expecting this moment. She was 30, with a quiet confidence that made Elena's pulse race and her stomach twist. "I didn't know about the will until last week. I'm sorry." "Sorry." Elena's voice cracked. "You got everything. Her journals, her life, everything she never shared with me. Why you?" Clara's gaze didn't waver. "I loved her," she said simply. "And she loved me." The words hit like a punch. Elena wanted to scream, to demand answers, but something in Clara's eyes, grief, raw and unguarded, stopped her. Instead she asked, "How did you know her?" Clara gestured to a small table in the corner. "Sit. I'll tell you." They sat, the air heavy with unspoken history. Clara explained. She'd met Lila at a poetry reading 3 months before the fire. Lila, vibrant and fearless, had been volunteering at a local LGBTQ center, hiding it from her family. Clara, a budding writer, was drawn to her instantly. They'd spent nights talking about dreams, love, and the world they wanted to build together. "She was scared to tell you," Clara admitted. "After you fought, she thought you'd rejected her." Elena's throat tightened. "I didn't reject her. I just didn't know what to say. I was a kid." Clara nodded, her eyes softening. "She knew you loved her. She just needed time. Time they never got." The fire had come too soon, sparked by faulty wiring, the police said. Elena had escaped, but Lila, trapped in her room, hadn't. The guilt had gnawed at Elena for years, and now Clara's presence made it worse. Yet there was something else, a pull toward Clara, a flicker of warmth in her chest she couldn't name. Clara reached into a drawer and pulled out a journal, its cover worn and familiar. "Lila's. She wanted you to have this," Clara said. "She wrote about you. A lot." Elena's hands trembled as she took it. The first page was a letter to her, dated the day before the fire. "Elena, I'm sorry we fought. I want you to know meal of me. I'm in love and it's beautiful. Her name is Clara." Tears blurred Elena's vision. She looked at Clara, who was watching her with a mix of sorrow and hope. "Why didn't she tell me?" Elena whispered. "She was going to," Clara said. "She believed you'd come around." That night, Elena sat in her hotel room, reading Lila's journal. Each page was a window into a sister she barely knew, her passions, her fears, her love for Clara. It was like meeting Lila again, and it broke her heart. But it also sparked something new. A need to understand Clara, to know the woman who'd held Lila's heart. The next day, Elena returned to the bookstore. "I want to know her through you," she said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. Clara agreed, and they began to talk about Lila, about life, about the pain of loss. Hours turned into days, and Elena found herself lingering in Seattle, drawn to Clara's warmth, her laughter, the way she made the world feel less heavy. But the journal held another secret. On the final page, Lila had written, "If I'm gone, find Clara. She'll help you heal." Elena's breath caught. Had Lila known something? Or was it just hope? Either way, Clara was becoming more than a link to Lila. She was becoming someone Elena couldn't stop thinking about. As autumn leaves fell outside the bookstore, Elena felt a shift. Clara's hand brushed hers one evening, and the touch sent a jolt through her. Was this betrayal, or was it something else? Something Lila might have wanted? Elena couldn't shake the feeling that Lila was still in the room, her presence woven into every word Clara spoke. The Seattle bookstore had become a sanctuary, its shelves a quiet witness to their growing connection. Yet, guilt clung to Elena like damp fog, whispering that she was betraying her twin by feeling anything for Clara. Each morning, Elena returned to pages and promises, telling herself it was for Lila to understand the sister she'd lost. But Clara's voice, low and warm, and the way her fingers lingered on a book's spine, stirred something deeper. Elena, who had always kept her heart locked away, felt it crack open. She was 28, a woman who'd buried her desires under layers of grief, but Clara's presence was like sunlight piercing a storm. One rainy afternoon, Clara invited Elena to her apartment above the bookstore. "There's something you should see," she said, her green eyes unreadable. The space was small but vibrant, filled with books, sketches, and a guitar leaning against the wall. On a wooden table sat a box, its lid engraved with Lila's initials. "She left this with me," Clara said, her voice catching. "Before everything." Inside were letters, photographs, and a small painting of two girls holding hands under a starry sky. Elena recognized it instantly, Lila's work, from when they were 15, dreaming of futures they couldn't yet name. "She painted this for us," Elena whispered, tracing the canvas. "Before things got complicated." Clara sat beside her, close enough that Elena could feel her warmth. "She talked about you all the time," Clara said. "She said you were her anchor, even when you fought. She regretted that night, your fight about her coming out. She thought she'd pushed you away." Elena's chest ached. "I didn't know how to handle it. I was scared, not of her but of losing her. And then I did." Her voice broke and Clara's hand found hers, a gentle anchor in the storm of memory. They spent hours sifting through the box, each item a thread tying them to Lila. A letter described a night Lila and Clara danced in the rain, laughing until they were breathless. Another was a poem, raw and aching, about loving someone in secret. Elena read it, her heart pounding. "Did she write this about you?" she asked. Clara nodded, her eyes glistening. "She was afraid to be open, but with me she was free. I wish you'd seen that side of her." "I wish I had too," Elena admitted. The words felt like a confession, peeling back years of regret. She looked at Clara, her face soft in the lamplight, and felt a pull she couldn't ignore. It wasn't just Lila's memory drawing her in, it was Clara. Her strength, her vulnerability, the way she carried Lila's love like a torch. Days turned into weeks, and Elena extended her stay in Seattle. She and Clara fell into a rhythm. Coffee in the mornings, long talks in the bookstore, walks through Pike Place Market as autumn deepened. Elena learned Clara's story. Raised in a conservative town, she'd left at 18, finding freedom in Seattle's vibrant queer community. She'd opened the bookstore to create a space where people like Lila could feel safe. "It's why she loved it here," Clara said one evening, as they watched the sunset from a pier. She said it felt like home. Elena wanted to ask if Clara felt that way about her too, but the words stuck. Instead, she said, "I'm starting to understand her because of you." Clara's smile was small but radiant, and Elena's heart raced. But tension simmered beneath their connection. Elena found a note in Lila's journal, tucked between pages. "Clara's the one, but I'm scared Elena won't understand." I want them to meet, but what if they hate each other? The word stung. Lila had wanted this Elena and Clara together, in some way, but Elena felt unworthy. She'd failed Lila once. How could she deserve this? One night, as rain pattered against the bookstore windows, Clara asked, "Why do you keep coming back, Elena?" Her tone was gentle, but her eyes searched Elena's, demanding truth. Elena hesitated, her pulse loud in her ears. "Because you make me feel closer to her. And because I don't want to leave." The admission hung between them, heavy with possibility. Clara stepped closer, her breath warm against Elena's cheek. "Then stay," Clara whispered. Their lips were inches apart, the air electric. Elena's mind screamed, "This is wrong. This is Lila's love," but her heart urged her forward. She closed the distance, their kiss soft and tentative, like a question neither could answer. The next morning, Elena woke in Clara's apartment, her heart a tangle of joy and guilt. She slipped out before Clara stirred, needing space to breathe. Back at her hotel, she opened Lila's journal again, searching for permission, for absolution. She found a line that stopped her cold. "If I'm gone, Elena, love fiercely. Don't let fear win again." Elena stared at the words, tears falling. Lila had known her better than she knew herself. But could she let go of the past to embrace this fragile, beautiful thing with Clara? Or would guilt consume her first? Elena stood at the edge of Seattle's waterfront, the November wind biting her cheeks as she clutched Lila's journal. The kiss with Clara lingered like a melody she couldn't shake, soft, warm, and terrifying. She wanted to run toward it and away from it, torn between Lila's memory and the life unfolding before her. Clara had texted her that morning. "I don't know what last night meant, but I'm here when you're ready." Elena hadn't replied. She couldn't. The journal's words love fiercely echoed, but so did the fire, the screams, the moment she'd failed Lila. How could she deserve Clara when she'd let her twin burn? She returned to the bookstore, unable to stay away. Clara was restocking shelves, her movements deliberate, her face a mask of calm. "You're back," she said, her voice neutral but her eyes searching. "I wasn't sure you would be." "I wasn't either," Elena admitted, her hands twisting nervously. "Last night. I don't know what I'm doing, Clara. I feel her everywhere. And then I look at you and I feel something else." Clara set down a book, her expression softening. "You're not betraying her, Elena. Lila wanted you to live, not to carry her like a weight." The words hit hard, cracking Elena's defenses. She sank into a chair, tears spilling. "I didn't save her. I stood there, Clara, while she screamed. How can I move on when I failed her?" Clara knelt beside her, her hand resting lightly on Elena's knee. "You were 17. You were scared. That doesn't make you a monster, it makes you human." Elena wanted to believe her, but the guilt was a tide pulling her under. Clara stood, pulling her into a hug, and Elena let herself melt into it, her sobs muffled against Clara's shoulder. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. They spent the next week unraveling Lila's life together. Clara shared stories. Lila's love for late-night drives, her habit of doodling in margins, her dream of opening a community center for queer youth. Elena shared her own memories, Lila's laughter, their secret handshake, the way she'd sneak extra cookies for them both. Each story stitched them closer, but the kiss hung between them, unspoken. One evening, Clara invited Elena to a local poetry slam, a place Lila had loved. The dimly lit venue buzzed with energy, voices weaving stories of love and loss. A young woman read a poem about forbidden love, and Elena's eyes found Clara's across the table. The air shifted, charged with possibility. When they stepped outside, the cold air sharp, Clara took Elena's hand. "Lila brought us here," she said. "Not just to grieve, but to find something new." Elena's heart pounded. "I'm scared," she whispered. "What if this is wrong?" Clara's thumb brushed her knuckles. "What if it's right?" They kissed again under a street lamp, the world fading to just them. This time, Elena didn't pull away. She let herself feel the warmth, the hope, the love Lila had wanted for her. But as they walked back to Clara's apartment, a man's voice cut through the night. "Clara Monroe?" He was tall, with a sharp jaw and cold eyes, holding a manila envelope. "I'm from the estate lawyer's office," he said. "There's an issue with Lila Harper's will." Elena's stomach dropped. "What issue?" The man handed Clara the envelope. "A challenge. Lila's aunt is contesting the will, claiming it's invalid. She says Lila wasn't of sound mind when she wrote it. That's ridiculous, Clara snapped, her voice fierce. Lila knew exactly what she was doing. The man shrugged. You'll need to prove it in court. Hearings in 2 weeks. Back at Clara's apartment, they pored over the documents. Lila's Aunt Margaret, a devout woman who disapproved of Lila's lifestyle, claimed Lila's relationship with Clara was a phase, her will a mistake. If she won, Clara would lose everything: the journals, the locket, the bookstore Lila had helped fund. Worse, Margaret wanted Lila's memory erased, her truth buried. Elena's anger flared. She can't do this. Lila loved you. She chose you. Clara's eyes were steely. Then we fight. For her. They spent days preparing, digging through Lila's journals for proof of her intent. Elena found a letter Lila had written to Clara. You're my home, my future. If anything happens to me, everything I have is yours. It was dated a week before the fire, clear and deliberate. But Margaret's lawyer was ruthless, painting Lila as confused, manipulated by Clara. The accusation stung, and Elena saw the toll it took on Clara: her sleepless nights, her quiet moments of doubt. One night, as they worked late, Clara broke. What if we lose? She whispered. What if they take her from me? Elena took her hands, her voice firm. They won't. We'll fight for her together. Clara's eyes met hers, and in that moment Elena knew. This wasn't just about Lila anymore. It was about them, about the love growing between them, fragile but fierce. Lila had been the spark, but they were the flame. The courtroom was a cold, sterile space, its walls echoing with the weight of judgment. Elena sat beside Clara, her hands clasped tightly, as Margaret's lawyer tore into Lila's memory. Lila Harper was a troubled young woman, swayed by influences she couldn't resist, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. Elena's blood boiled. Lila had been vibrant, not troubled. In love, not swayed. Clara's hand trembled in hers, but her jaw was set. They'd spent days preparing, gathering evidence. Lila's journals, letters, even testimonies from friends at the LGBTQ center. The letter to Clara, clear and heartfelt, was their strongest weapon. But Margaret's lawyer twisted it, claiming Lila's youth made her unreliable. Elena wanted to scream. Lila had been 17, yes, but her love for Clara was no whim, it was her truth. Margaret took the stand, her face pinched with disapproval. Lila was lost, she said. She needed guidance, not this. She gestured at Clara, her lip curling. Elena's nails dug into her palms. This woman hadn't known Lila, not the real Lila, who danced in the rain, who dreamed of a world where she could be herself. When Clara testified, her voice was steady, though Elena saw the strain in her eyes. Lila was the bravest person I knew, Clara said. She loved fiercely, and she chose me to carry her legacy. I won't let anyone erase that. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, nodded slightly, and Elena felt a flicker of hope. Elena took the stand next, her heart pounding. Lila was my twin, she said, her voice breaking. I failed her once by not understanding her when she came out, but I know now she loved Clara, and she wanted her to have everything. Don't take that from her. Her eyes met Clara's, and she saw tears there, mirroring her own. The hearing stretched over days, each one a battle to preserve Lila's truth. At night, Elena and Clara retreated to the bookstore, finding solace in each other. One evening, as they sat among the shelves, Clara admitted, I'm scared, Elena. Not just of losing the will, but of losing you. Elena's breath caught. Why would you lose me? Because this is hard, Clara said, her voice raw. I see how much it hurts you, reliving the fire, the fight. I don't want to be the reason you break. Elena took Clara's face in her hands, her touch gentle but firm. You're not breaking me. You're helping me heal. She kissed her, slow and deliberate, pouring every unspoken feeling into it. Clara kissed her back, and for a moment, the world was just them, two women finding each other in the shadow of loss. The verdict came on a gray morning. The judge ruled in Clara's favor, citing the clarity of Lila's intent in her letters and journals. Margaret's challenge was dismissed, and the will stood. Clara would keep the journals, the locket, the bookstore, Lila's love. Elena felt a weight lift, but also a new ache. The fight was over, but what did that mean for them? They celebrated quietly, with wine and music in Clara's apartment. But as they danced, Elena's mind raced. She'd come to Seattle for answers about Lila, but she'd found Clara her warmth, her strength, her heart. Was this what Lila had meant by love fiercely? Or was Elena stealing something that belonged to her sister? The next day, Elena found a final letter in Lila's journal, tucked in the back. Elena, if you're reading this, you've met Clara. She's my heart, but you're my soul. Don't be afraid to love her too. I want you both to be happy. The words were a gift, a release. Elena wept, not from grief but from gratitude. Lila had seen this somehow, and she'd given her blessing. Elena showed the letter to Clara, her hands shaking. Clara read it, tears streaming down her face. She knew, Clara whispered. She always knew. They stood in silence, the weight of Lila's love binding them. Elena took Clara's hand, her voice steady. I'm not leaving, Clara. Not unless you want me to. Clara's smile was radiant, like the sunrise in the image Elena had imagined. Stay, she said, and they kissed, not as a question but as a promise. But the past wasn't done with them. As they packed up Lila's things, preparing to move forward, Elena found a photograph she hadn't seen before. Lila and Clara laughing with a third woman between them. Her face was familiar, too familiar. Elena's heart stopped. It was Hera's version of her she didn't recognize, smiling in a way she hadn't since the fire. Who is this? She asked, her voice trembling. Clara's face paled. That's not you. The photograph trembled in Elena's hand, the image of a woman who looked like her but wasn't burning into her mind. She stared at Clara, whose green eyes were wide with shock, the bookstore's warm light suddenly feeling cold. If that's not me, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper, then who is she? Clara took the photo, her fingers brushing Elena's, grounding her in the chaos. I don't know, she admitted. Lila never mentioned anyone else who looked like you. But this was taken a month before the fire. I thought it was you. Elena's world tilted. She'd spent 11 years believing she'd lost her twin, her mirror, in the fire. But this woman, her face identical to Elena's, to Lila, suggested something impossible. Had Lila survived? Or was this a cruel trick of memory? A doppelganger from a past she couldn't recall? The fire had left gaps in her mind, moments blurred by trauma, but she'd never questioned her own story. Until now. They sat, the photograph between them, and pieced together what they knew. Clara remembered the day it was Taquina picnic by Lake Washington, Lila radiant, the mystery woman quiet but smiling. She didn't talk much, Clara said. Lila called her a friend, but there was something guarded about her. Elena's mind raced. She'd always assumed Lila died in the fire, her body identified by dental records. But what if the records were wrong? What if Lila had escaped only to disappear? Or worse, what if the woman in the fire wasn't Lila at all? The thought was a knife twisting in her chest. She'd built her life on guilt, on the belief she'd failed her sister. If Lila had lived, why hadn't she come back? Clara suggested they dig deeper. They contacted the lawyer, who pulled the fire investigation records. The details were sparse. One body, identified as Lila Harper, found in the upstairs bedroom. But the report noted inconsistencies: a necklace found near the body that didn't match Lila's locket. Elena's pulse quickened. That's not possible, she said. Lila never took that locket off. They tracked down the officer who'd worked the case, now retired, living in Tacoma. He was reluctant but agreed to meet. Over coffee, he admitted the investigation had been rushed. The fire was ruled accidental, he said. We had no reason to dig deeper. The dental records matched and we closed it. But when Elena showed him the photograph, his brow furrowed. That's odd. I don't remember a third girl. Elena and Clara spent days chasing leads, their bond deepening through shared purpose. They found a friend from Lila's LGBTQ center, who remembered the mystery woman. She called herself Anna, the friend said. Showed up a few times then vanished. Looked just like Lila, but colder, distant. Anna. The name meant nothing to Elena, but it felt like a clue. They searched online, scouring social media, old records, anything. Finally, a breakthrough. A missing persons report from 2014, a year after the fire, for an Anna Harper, age 18, with a face identical to Elena's. The report listed her as a distant cousin, raised in foster care, who'd reached out to Lila months before the fire. Elena's heart sank. A cousin, a near twin who'd connected with Lila in secret. Had Anna been in the house that night? Had she died in Lila's place? The questions piled up, but one truth emerged. Lila might have survived. Clara and Elena drove to the last address listed for Anna, a rundown apartment in Olympia. It was empty, but a neighbor remembered a girl who looked like Elena, leaving in a hurry after the fire. She was scared, the neighbor said. Said she had to disappear. The trail went cold, but Elena felt alive, her grief transforming into hope. If Lila was out there, she'd find her. And if not, she'd honor her by living fully, fearlessly. She turned to Clara, who'd been her rock through every revelation. I don't know what we'll find, Elena said, but I know I want you with me. Clara's eyes shone. Always. They returned to Seattle, to the bookstore, their haven. One night, as snow fell outside, Elena took Clara's hand. Lila brought us together, she said. Whether she's out there or not, she gave me you. And I love you. Clara's smile was a sunrise. I love you too. The search for Lila would continue, but Elena had found something just as precious. A love that healed, a life worth living. Lila's will, her journals, her love for Clara, they weren't just a legacy. They were a bridge to a future Elena hadn't dared imagine. And as she kissed Clara under the bookstore's soft lights, she knew she'd never forget Lila, but she'd learn to love fiercely, just as her sister had wanted. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.